Lithuania with members of Lithuania's new Rapid Reaction Force. They've just stormed this building, taking out a number of pro-Udian separatists. This is all part of the lightning strike exercise designed to simulate the hybrid war which we've seen in eastern Ukraine.
There will be a kind of little skirmish here, and we will look for the reaction from our own forces. But we do not know what happens next. Right? That's a part of the game.
So that's one of the opposing forces' vehicles, and now there are some armed men now coming out of the vehicle and firing towards the Rapid Reaction Force. So they've had to withdraw.
Right. This was a little skirmish here. They just, tested our positions. And
so, if in reality, do you think then most of those attackers would have been killed? Do you think in that scenario?
I believe so. I believe so.
Following its fueling of the crisis in Ukraine, Russia has turned its attention to its Baltic neighbours, increasing its provocative rhetoric and running a number of large-scale military drills along its western borders. In Ukraine, Russia used threats to Russian speakers to justify its annexation of Crimea. With their own Russian-speaking minorities, this has put the Baltic States on edge, who fear that they could be next. As a result, the countries of Latvia, Estonia and Lithuania are adapting and readying their military forces. This is especially true for Lithuania, a NATO and EU state that shares a border with the heavily militarized Russian exclave of Kaliningrad. Lithuania has created its own rapid reaction force and has also taken the drastic step of reintroducing conscription. In May, Lithuania carried out its first ever nationwide test of the rapid reaction force, dubbed Operation Lightning Strike. The exercise mobilized some 2,500 soldiers and 500 police to test the state's ability to counter the type of hybrid warfare methods seen in Ukraine.
The main lessons learned came from Ukraine scenario. We are analyzing, we see, we had direct contact with those soldiers who are coming here for medical treatment. So we're just speaking with them, and we are building this scenario and what to expect. We're trying to do one day we're dealing with the protest with civilian people, then we have also prepared for some regular war or even mixture of those.
So Major, could you tell me what we are looking at here?
We have the map of Lithuania. The red cubics reflect the adversary forces, those groups acting in this part of Lithuania. In the eastern part, they want to declare independence of the eastern Lithuania. We know that they get support by smuggling weapons, especially using those corridors in here from Parta. And we know the country of Parta is very close related and supported by country of Udia. We always, during the exercise, use artificial names, just in order not to get any kind of friction or...
I see.
The first major exercise was an intensive multi-scenario drill designed to test the coordination between the Rapid Reaction Force and the National Police.
This is the town of Kaišiadorys, which for today's part of the exercise has been attacked by pro-Udian separatists who've taken over a government building in the main square here and also holding a protest. This sort of scenario basically mimics what we saw in eastern Ukraine and in Crimea, with sort of little green men taking over buildings, taking over infrastructure points, no one really sure who they are. And then obviously in the east of Ukraine we saw big mass pro-Russian protesters. So today we'll probably see a bit of how the police and the Rapid Reaction Force deal with those kind of threats. protesters are now moving towards the public security forces, who have got some dogs, they've got some sort of tear gas canisters and shotguns, riot control weapons. The police have now managed to move the protesters out of the main square. The guys actually playing the protesters, the pro-Udian separatists, are actually in the same unit as these guys. So this is the anti-terrorist unit that is now coming to deal with the unknown gunmen that have taken up residence inside the building. So the anti-terror police, the Aras unit, are now scaling ladders into the building to try and take the gunmen out who are firing from inside. The firing at least has stopped now, so it seems like they've neutralized the threat. This is basically what the Ukrainian government wished they'd done in places like Crimea and Donetsk. It's been a year to the day since we saw a very similar scenario in the city of Mariupol in eastern Ukraine, when armed insurgents took over a police station, and there were also at the same time civilian protesters on the streets. But what happened in Mariupol is that there was a massive clash, a number of civilians were killed, and the police station was basically destroyed and burnt out in a massive firefight. These sort of exercises by the Rapid Reaction Force and the Ministry of Interior are basically to ensure a situation like that doesn't happen here in Lithuania.
Clearly, the Lithuanian government is taking the events in Ukraine seriously.
I don't think we could expect the massive conventional cross-border attack from Russia, but when it comes to inciting social or national hatred, trying to take control over some rural area, some administrative buildings, trying to smuggle special forces soldiers as we've seen in Crimea, I think it's more likely.
For the next scenario, the pro-Udian separatists had seized an airfield in the east of the country to bring in supplies and reinforcements from Udia. Last year, we witnessed the pro-Russian separatists start the months-long bloody battle for Donetsk International Airport, which left hundreds of dead on both sides.
As part of the exercise, the pro-Udian separatists have taken up positions around the airstrip, and the Rapid Reaction Force will converge on this position and try to retake the airfield from the separatists. In reality, if any sort of insurgency or any sort of separatist movement had taken an airfield, the likelihood of them actually being able to land supplies or even planes to take off from the airfield would be very slim, given the fact that Lithuania has its own air force and that there are also NATO planes stationed in the country as well. The separatist position just in front of us has been taken out with a grenade, so they're all playing dead now. It seems only 3 or 4 of the Rapid Reaction Force were needed to at least get this far. It's quite unrealistic, but I guess in a war game you always want the good guys to win. It looks like these two went on a bit of a Rambo killing spree and massacred all those separatists in the corner there. We've now come to an abandoned building on the outskirts of Kaišiadorys. For the purpose of the exercise, this building is being used as a HQ for the pro-Udian separatists. In the next 10 minutes or so, the Rapid Reaction Force is going to arrive at this location, storm the building and neutralise the separatists. So inside the HQ building, the pro-Udian separatists have also set up a second layer of defence with a sandbag emplacement and a heavy machine gun guarding the entrance to the second level, where there are some more separatists upstairs. This is so that it makes it as difficult as possible for the Rapid Reaction Force to take over the building. You can hear some vehicles now moving towards the building, and the guys are taking up their defences, checking their weapons. I think it's about to get very, very loud in here.
They told
on loudspeakers that your building is surrounded, you now have a chance to surrender and step out of the building with your hands up.
Yeah.
In other case, rapid reaction units will use lethal force. And now the units are coming in, they are surrounded from all areas and just closing in, taking positions behind buildings and stuff.
The Rapid Reaction Force members are basically right at the front door now. The Rapid Reaction Force members are now extracting their wounded from the assault of the building. As far as we're aware, there's still separatist forces on the second floor.
So now they're taking control of the second floor, where the separatists left alive group have barricaded themselves.
This operation shows how difficult it can be for a military force to take a well-defended building. So far, as part of the scenario at least, the Rapid Reaction Force have only had a couple of wounded, but in reality it could take a lot longer to clear this building and there could be a lot more casualties.
The main struggle was this fire position with a machine gun in it. As far as I heard, about 13 killed in action on this floor and 3 surrendered.
Operation Lightning Strike is now over. The Udian-backed separatists have been neutralized by the Rapid Reaction Force and Lithuania has regained full control over its territory. However, the chance of a Ukraine-type scenario happening here in Lithuania is actually very slim, given its small Russian-speaking minority. But in this unpredictable and volatile climate, the Lithuanians can't afford to be unprepared. Either way, the Russian forces over the border in Kaliningrad will be watching this exercise with keen interest.